So as mentioned, a lot of things to get to today. We're going to try and keep it at an hour and a half, just because I know this is just a good break in the morning, in the afternoon, but we do have other things to get to. So try and move pretty quickly. We have a local student IronViz winner, Parth Agarwal. So I got to chat with Parth a little bit as he was developing his viz, and I'm really excited to have him just have a brief Q&A session about his winning viz. So looking forward to that. From there, also really excited to have Ashley Howard Neville from Tableau present on the data culture playbook. This was something that was recently released by Tableau, and what better person to talk about it than one of the authors. So Ashley's going to be doing a brief presentation on some aspects of the data culture playbook. And then Zach Geis, DataDev ambassador, will tell us about all things Tableau DataDev, APIs, and yeah, it should be an awesome meeting. But first, before we get into all that, this is the first meeting of 2021. We took January off, sort of a slow start to the year, but before moving forward, just looking backwards on the year that was 2020, we started off with some really great meetings, right? We met at Caterpillar locally. We had Zen Master Hall of Famer Steve Wexler come to town and do a great workshop and great TUG presentation. And then we met at the U of A the next month, had a great collaboration with the student Tableau user group and the Tucson Tableau user group. And so we had some really good momentum going, and then we had obviously the pandemic, which turned out to be a really good thing because we really got increased our global reach. So we had just more global speakers, global input, people from around the globe just being willing to present and participate in our user group. So monthly attendance, the group has really grown dramatically over the last year. So, and again, part of that was the pandemic. So looking at early last year, sort of around 20, then the pandemic hit, we kind of took a couple months off, and then we see just the virtual benefit of switching to that platform, more attenders, global reach, et cetera. And then we kind of took a couple months off, and here we are in 2021, excited to get the year going. We also formed a leadership team. Natalia joined us and has helped us do some really good things with the user group, as well as Nicole. We've had Zen Master presentations, and again, the global reach and trying to maintain the local Tucson connections. So yeah, Tableau also recently released the Community Hub. So this is all things Tableau community, user groups, Tableau public, things that are going on that are led by the community, that the community is participating in. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's an awesome resource for the community. 2021 is coming soon. I'm guessing this will be featured at some point in one of our upcoming groups, just what the new features are. Try and have some content on that coming soon. And February is Black History Month, so Tableau is doing some pretty incredible things in the data plus diversity realm. So check those out via the link shown below if you're not familiar with what's going on in the community. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with one of our speakers. So Parth, let me just introduce you real quick, and then we can start having a discussion about the IronViz. So you're a junior, right, at the University of Arizona, MIS student.
Yes.
Business analytics, consulting, and strategy are sort of your passions, and you're really looking to get into management and strategy consulting. And while doing that, you like to cook, meditate, right? Did I get that right? And hike. Yes. So interests outside of the data world. I'll let you add anything to that if you want to. And yeah, just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So apart from all of that, I also am interested in just, learning and exploring things. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like you covered most of it. So.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Why don't you just bring up your student IronViz visualization. And let's see, stop sharing, and then we can facilitate the Q&A as we have that up on the screen.
So there was an update on the system side, but I had used a better font. So
okay.
Changed.
So tell us a little bit about why you decided to join the student IronViz competition.
Right. So I started Tableau in like the fall 2020 semester. It was just part of my class, business analytics class. But like towards the end, right, my professor said there's this competition you can try out, and I thought of let's learn. Like Tableau was new to me that time, and I thought it would be a great learning experience to like develop my skills. So I just entered the competition, and then I got connected with you, and then I had feedback and guidance, and that's how I kind of entered and kept progressing through this quiz.
Awesome. How did you, so your topic was gasoline price and human behavior. You had a really cool story surrounding the analysis. How did you decide on that topic?
Right. So at least like till the third iteration of the Viz, I did not have gasoline prices, but then uh, I was like constantly like taking the same data, cleaning it again over and over, and then I noticed this gasoline price, and I thought let's try to drag it in one of the rows and columns to see what kind of trends I can get. And then surprisingly, I did see a trend and a correlation, right? So it did. That's something I chose to include. Before it was kind of like the spiral chart, which did look cool, but then I realized it's not. Um, it looked cool, but then it didn't have like an analytical sense to it. So I switched to this.
Cool. Yeah. Do you just want to go ahead and walk us through the Viz a little bit and just talk to maybe some of the key components of it?
Sure. So it starts off with I chose to make it like a story, but it's technically a dashboard, and I started off with like a introduction. So this was the first data set that we got from Tableau. It was about the temperature difference between land and water over years. So it was just two columns and the easy data set. So green was kind of like the good, and then I chose the color red for representing danger, and then I added like the trend lines to show how it's increasing, and then the projections are also increasing. And then I got this feedback where I should maybe add like what take doing the mouse over does. So at each point we can see like a descriptive tooltip. After that, there's gas emissions. So with increasing gas prices, we see that the average emissions in that particular uh, country reduces, and this is because like if things are expensive, people tend to be more careful about using. And then you see countries in Europe, they have high carbon tax and different regulations that increase the gas price to use. So it was based on countries, and then I also added the grouping feature from Tableau to separate it by continents. Next is the population bomb. So this is basically showing how the increasing population can get you to increasing carbon emissions. And if you see, the average line is increasing and the deviation is also increasing, so which shows like a trend that higher populations will have higher emissions. Next is the and so how can we like how all of the data comes together. And if you see, this is just like putting everything together in one chart if I had to, and it points to the fact that high population and emissions with low gas prices, the worst combination to have, as you'll have the highest emissions in general. And there's also a second map part to it. Right, so in here, there's I use these mouse over filters so that trends can be explored, and then we can sort of click and also kind of observe how different characteristics, and like if you have your own trends, so like if you want to explore by geography, and it's just all the data on a map, so it's easier to kind of visualize places. And yeah, then there's notes for the data and statistics.
What did you order?
Yeah, so I love how you have the story on the front page. You have the map section, which shows sort of the global divide in gasoline prices, human behavior, and then you documented it really, really well. Out of those, like, what was the most challenging aspect of all of this for you? Was it more the technical side? Was it the story-based side? Was it trying to find the right charts, the best practices? All of it?
I'd say all of it, but then most of my time went like designing and kind of how to organize the data I have. So like I did have charts and everything made in sheets, but then I was finding it difficult to like, how should I kind of lay it out in one dashboard and kind of bringing things together. That was the hardest part.
Yeah, organizing it, telling that cohesive story so it's logically laid out there and it's easy to understand. That's a challenge. So this was the first year they did the student IronVis competition. Were you surprised when you were announced as a winner? What was that like for you?
Honestly, like I did not expect to win, because I knew I was competing against like master students and postgraduates who like way more experience. Like for me, I had only like one semester worth of experience in Tableau, right? So I went in as like, let's see, I'll get some experience about making visualizations in Tableau. But then when I got the email, it was just, it wasn't believable for me.
Yes, and I can relate to that as the IronVis winner. You're like, is this email right? Did they send it to somebody who shouldn't be getting it? Just gone to somebody else. So yeah, very cool. And Zach was saying in the chat just how good this is, and thinking back to when I first started at Tableau, this is just light years ahead of anything that I was doing a few months in. And I think as people were looking over the student IronVis submittals, I think that was sort of the general consensus. These were just so well done for students who are just getting started in data visualization. Speaking of just getting started, one last question. What are your goals going forward in terms of data visualization?
In terms of data visualization, I hope to kind of improve on my skills again and kind of keep learning Tableau. As you know, this is just, I think, the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more to learn. I've seen some incredible visualizations, and I still wonder how it's done. So there's a lot to learn, and I hope to bring, like, I've been using Tableau quite frequently in some data sets that I get, because it's just easy to kind of explore with the show me feature and like drag and drop different fields and relations. So I hope to use it more.
Awesome. And if you do want to follow Parth as he does more of that, check his Tableau public profile out, give him a follow. I'm excited to see what else he does in the data visualization space. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us here this morning on the user group. And yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Sure, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Natalia, and Natalia will introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Christian. And perhaps Parth can share his public link so we can check out his dashboard more in detail on the chat, if you don't mind. But now next, we are gonna move to Ashley's presentation. So Ashley Howard Neville is an evangelist for Tableau. She started as a Tableau customer a decade ago before joining Tableau as a consultant to some of the company's now largest customers. She's passionate about enabling organizations to cultivate a community of curious and creative people who combine critical thinking with data. She's a contributor to Tableau's Blueprint and the author of the Data Culture Playbook. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today. Ashley, take it away.
Thanks for having me. So I am an evangelist for Tableau, which is just a fun title. That means I get to go out and talk with people all day and then take their best practices and the things that are challenging for them and help our marketing team create assets to help you guys do your work better. So I'm really passionate about organizations better using technology, but the people aspect behind technology getting used. It's not enough to simply deploy technology and walk away. You really have to get people engaged and wanting to use technology like Tableau, like the dashboards that analysts build, to really create change in the organization. So, you know, these days, it seems like every organization is really wanting to be data-driven. And it's important because there's sort of an urgency to these times of knowing where we're going amongst sort of unprecedented times. And so most companies are really desiring to be a data-driven company. I actually just saw a study that came out a week ago that said 99% of executives surveyed in a recent US-based survey said that they wanted to be data-driven. So I think it goes without a doubt that organizations want to be using data to make decisions. Because at the end of the day, making a decision with data is far better than making a decision without. And the benefits are really there for companies. If you can sort of shift the mindset around how you engage with data to engage with it widespread across the entire organization, you see more innovation, faster time to market. You see improvement in customer retention, and you see improvement actually in employee retention, because enabling people to do their jobs better creates people who are more satisfied in their work. But it's really hard. So 92% of organizations are failing to scale analytics to everyone in their company. They might have pockets of really good usage, but they don't have widespread data literacy across their entire organization. Why is that? Well, because the answer lies in building a data culture. It's not enough to simply deploy technology or buy Tableau or build some dashboards. You really have to infuse decision-making with data into the entire organization. It takes values and behaviors. You know, if you think about what motivates you to do your job and to do your job well, it's the reward systems that we have built in. It's when your boss comes and tells you, good job. It's when you see the executives at your company using data or encouraging people to go to training and build their data skills, that really can be sort of game changers. If people can be promoted with based off of the fact that they took an initiative to market, but they didn't have data behind it, well, what does that tell everyone? And so these are really the factors of a data culture. And in a data culture, there are 5 sort of key elements that we see. So these 5 elements came from a series of interviews we did in 2018 with some of our top customers. And we really saw that their environments were different. They really sought to foster trust, to develop talent, to seek commitment, to support sharing and changing mindset. And so they sort of approach their work a little bit differently with more of a people-centric focus rather than technology alone. But most companies struggling. This is actually from a study that came out last year. Just a week ago, the 2021 version of the study came out, and it found that most companies were struggling. They said they wanted to use data, but they really couldn't shift the culture. This is 72%. The new study that came out said that only 24% of organizations have made any progress in being data-driven this year. And coincidentally, 24% also were the only ones that had changed their culture at all. So really changing culture and being data-driven go hand in hand. So we have been asked a lot about what does good data usage look like in a company? How do I know if I have a data culture? Well, companies with data cultures who put data at the heart of their decision-making don't just build dashboards, and they don't do analysis in an ivory tower over an IT. What they do is they really infuse data throughout the company, and they do it in 4 ways. They really align leadership metrics based in data to business opportunities, and they use those leadership metrics to help them decide where they should put their time, effort, and energy of the company. They also build data sources that are critical to decision-making points. Often what we do is we look at data that is sort of outcome-based, rather than sort of looking at data that step backs through the process to understand why we got the outcome that we did. And then it's really critical that we put data into the hands of people where decision-making can happen. It's not enough to have data if you can't decide to do something different. Having a data culture is really about changing the organization to be better. And so you've got to put data at those critical decision-making points. And then it's really important to grow the value of data with specific use cases. And when we talk about specific use cases, it's not about whatever one pops up first, or at Tableau, back when we were in the offices, we had this culture of sort of, we call it sort of like the kitchen ask, where you're in the kitchen with someone else and they're like, oh, you're a data expert. Hey, can you help me with this thing? And now all of a sudden their work is getting prioritized over other projects that might be more valuable. So it's really important, if you have done the work to align your leadership metrics to business opportunities, to align the use cases that you're working on with data, that you're putting the most resources behind in your company, to the places where you can drive value to those metrics. And then the last area is around promoting widespread data discovery. And this goes beyond just saying self-service analytics. Data discovery is really about allowing people to explore and engage with data. It's so important that when they have the curiosity behind driving a question that they want the answer to, when they have that moment of why is this happening, that they can engage with data in that moment and find an insight. Because if they can't get access to data in that moment, or if they get access to data, but it's too hard to get an insight in that moment, they're going to turn away from data. So it's really important that it's not that they can go answer any question, and it's not that they can do high-level analysis. It's that those basic questions that they have can be answered with data, and answered in a way that's really relevant to them. So we put all of this information in a playbook this last year, because like I said, we got questions time and again from customers saying, what does good look like? What does good data usage look like? So this is a playbook that we launched in December. It's available on Tableau's website, and it really allows you to engage. So the playbook is broken down into 3 areas around building, running, and expanding each of these chapters, so that you can do the foundational work that you need to do now and slowly grow and iterate over time. So an example is in Align Leadership Metrics. We break down the different items you need to do to build, run, and expand. So you need to create a data leadership committee. That's really foundational. And then you need to define a set of key guiding metrics, no more than say 10. And once you do that well, you might want to go on to other chapters, or you can build. You can start running. You can get people to develop data to support guiding metrics rather than to help be leading indicators. And it's really important that you start tracking the metrics on a regular cadence through your meetings. What's really great about this playbook is, while we're talking about leadership, leadership can be for at any level of the company. So this playbook could apply to a team, or it could apply to a department, or it could apply for a whole company. It's very scalable. And it's should be a resource for you as an analyst to be able to say, hey, we actually need to do some things differently. I need to no longer be, say, a ticket taker of building dashboards, but I can help lead sort of a transformation in how data is used in the company. And then the playbook is filled with stories from customers. So there's a great story about Abercrombie and Fitch. And they set out on an initiative to reduce the number of official spreadsheets that they had in their company. So they set out to take 80 different spreadsheets that they had and decide what was the most important thing across all of the spreadsheets. And then they built, using Tableau metrics on Tableau server, a great command center for their executive team to track the metrics in near real time. And this set them up really well for this last year because they were able to understand where they were seeing major changes in behavior and the effect that it was having on their company. So, the second chapter, same thing, building data sources. Great story from Dubai Airport about the importance of customer satisfaction while flying, and how they actually sort of track people and how they move through the airport. And so when a big weather event happens, they're able actually to use data to make sure that there's an ideal customer experience still going on in the airport. So really, really great story to check out. And like I said, there's really great things about how to recruit a Tiger team, or how to build key data sources that you need. And then the importance of documenting and sharing your success. Chapter 3, like I said, it goes into growing value with specific use cases, and we share the story from Red Hat. Red Hat really was focused on how do we create one project that's going to have the most value with data. And they actually chose a set of leadership dashboards in their company to develop. They have been using data in their company, but it was a very manual process. And it took something like 100 hours to create the data that they needed for their executive team. And so they decided that the place that they would focus first was on an executive use case for their leadership team to be able to have metrics that they could ask questions of directly right in their leadership meeting, rather than having all of these appendixes and PowerPoints. So it's a really, really great story. I encourage you to go read that one in detail. And again, we break it down into building, running, and expanding. So wherever you are in your journey, you have a really good idea of if you're doing it well. And then the last one is my favorite, promoting widespread data discovery. A really, really great story from JP Morgan Chase about how they were able to grow their community around using data in their company and the impact that had. So in this one, we focus on the importance of collaboration towards department level goals to make sure that you're prioritizing the right types of data to have available, and the importance of things like problem solving and initiatives and innovation initiatives. Red Bull did a great one a while back where they put a problem out to their whole company and they asked them to solve it with data, and then their executive leadership team reviewed all of the submissions, and then they sort of did a business, what's it called? Like where they had the top 10 ideas come in and pitch, and they funded 3. So it was just a really, really great way where they're encouraging problem solving and innovation and curiosity, and not just building dashboards. And so, the playbook is available on Tableau's website, both in an interactive form as well as a downloadable PDF. And so I really encourage you to go check it out. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I think we've got about 5 minutes left.
Thank you, Ashley. That was fantastic. I can relate when you said 99% of leadership wants to be more data-driven. I see that a lot.
Yeah, it's fascinating because a lot of leadership teams say they want to use data. And then what ends up happening is they say like, well, we funded the data initiative last year. Why do we need money this year? Why do we need to make more investments this year? And so I think one of the things we're trying to do as a company is go out and have some harder conversations with the executive teams about what it really means to be committed to using data in an organization. That it's not enough to have a bunch of Excel spreadsheets running around, and it's not enough to even just have a bunch of dashboards. It's about what you do with it that matters. And to do good things with it, you've got to put resources beyond technology. You need to have a center of enablement. You need to have data literacy training and tool training. And takes much more than just standing up a suite of dashboards to be successful with data in your company. And I think people are starting to understand and see the conversations we're having with executives and leaders and business leaders specifically. A lot more business leaders are coming to the table to have conversations around data. And so I think we're starting to see the shift happen, which I think is great for everyone.
Yeah, I think whoever is a data analyst like myself and would like to promote data culture, I think this playbook and this presentation is a good way to start, because sometimes you don't know how to approach this huge initiative. And so this is it's a perfect playbook, and I'm certainly gonna share it with my supervisor.
Awesome. Well, I think one of the big takeaways, and I think maybe one of the reasons why a lot of companies have actually struggled in some of their data initiatives, is we focus we either spread ourselves really thin and we think about something like self-service analytics and we become really thin, or we become really focused on a couple of metrics. And I think what this playbook is trying to do is sort of say there's a middle ground where there's lots of things you need to do. And it's not just about, say, using AI or using machine learning algorithms, that there's a lot of use for data in different ways in the company, but you sort of need to be well-rounded in how you use data. And so hopefully it enables people to have a deeper conversation about opportunities to use data better in their companies.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, someone asked if we could share the link for the playbook, and Zach already did, so thank you.
There was a good question in here from Steven Skinner asking about the playbook and the Tableau blueprint. So how do they fit together? Where are the differences and synergies?
So I work on both project teams, and Tableau's blueprint is really focused towards an IT audience. And so when we created the playbook, we wanted to focus something more towards the business audience that talked a little bit more towards the language of the business. So the blueprint is a fantastic resource. It's about 180 pages long and is a bit overwhelming for folks. And so this is just sort of like a bite-sized nugget to help people, particularly our partners that we have on the business, sort of understand and data better and how it can sort of impact them. So it's written a little bit more from the business lens rather than the IT lens. They all sort of step up into how to be data driven. And you're going to see a lot from Tableau this year on how to be data driven as an organization. So this is probably not the first asset you'll see, but we're hoping to create a body of work that sort of is very complementary to each other. Sometimes we talk about data culture like this, where we actually don't really talk about Tableau as a product at all. It shows up in the case studies, but you could do this playbook with any technology. Hopefully you do it with Tableau. That would, help pay my bills, and I'd appreciate that. But really, when we talk about data culture, you could do it with any technology or any combination of technologies with Tableau. When we talk about the playbook or the blueprint is specific to how to do it in Tableau. So how to set up metrics, how to set up good data sources, how to govern those data sources. So one's a little bit more theoretical, the other one's a really, really in-depth guide. Hopefully that makes sense, but they're very complementary. They're all driving towards the same goal.
Yeah, and I have a follow-on question to that, and I think Stephen is kind of alluding to it here again in the chat. It's just it is one of the biggest issues where you have the difference in philosophy, data culture, and then practice, data culture, like implementation. And so I'm like, even take one aspect of it, like sitting in the room with executives, business leaders, and trying to whittle down the KPIs from like 30 to 10, like you're recommending. Like even that I think can be challenging, and that's just one small aspect of it. Like
It is.
Like how do you help them determine, okay, these are the 10 KPIs that we really need to be focusing on because these are the ones that are really driving value for our business?
Yeah, so it is a really good question. So, you know, I think the first step is you have to document every metric that's being used in the organization, and you almost need to have this like, oh crap moment. So here at Tableau, we actually had that moment that sort of helped shift our prioritization of metrics internally. About 4 years ago when Adam Silipsky, our current CEO, started. And at the end of the quarter, he sat down with his leadership team and he said, okay, so how many new customers did we add last quarter? And he got a different answer from sales and marketing and business operations. And it was very clear that we didn't have a specific answer on what was supposedly a critical initiative for the company to add more customers. We said, okay, one of the things we focused on was saying, what is the one driving definition? And then how can other teams create definitions that move or that are aligned to the official definition in repeatable ways? So I can always take my official number that we give Adam and go recreate marketing specific number or business operations number, because I can always sort of mathematically get to that definition. And so sometimes what you can do is you can ladder these metrics. And it turns out that when you start laddering the metrics, there are actually only really a handful, because what you have is all of these derivative metrics. And so it's just really important. You can give teams flexibility in their own definitions, but at the end of the day, the metrics that you're accountable to, everyone needs to have transparency to how they're defined. And it's okay sometimes to start with measuring more. I think one of the things we've seen during the pandemic was there were metrics that people didn't really think about a lot. Like we weren't so concerned with cash flow a year ago. Now we're highly concerned with cash flow and making sure there's enough money in the bank for payroll. Or to pay the lease on the building, or to pay the suppliers. And so that might not have been an important metric before, but now it is. And so having a set of metrics doesn't mean that they never change. They can change. It's just what is the most important right now, and how can we make sure that everyone in the organization can align to those things? Because at the end of the day, there's only so much time and energy, and you can't do everything.
Cool. Any last questions? We are about time to transition to our next speaker, but if there are any more questions, one last chance.
I will say that we just recorded a webinar. I think it aired back on the 9th, but you can go watch it on demand. And there's a great interview in there with the Senior Director of Sales Analytics for Comcast about how they sort of followed these principles in their organization and built a really strong relationship with their business. So I would highly encourage people to go take a listen to that. It really brings this to life. And really how to have some hard conversations in your organization. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Do you mind sharing the link with the chat?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Fantastic.
Okay.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen real quickly so I can introduce our next speaker. And I guess before I do that, Ashley, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing. I think that was informative and really helpful for a lot of people, myself included, and looking forward to what else Tableau has on the horizon this year and beyond in terms of being data-driven and sort of infusing data drivenness into culture. All right, so our next speaker is Zach Geis, and Zach is the leader of the Tableau COE at JP Morgan Chase, where he and his team focus on delivering quality Tableau experiences across the organization. Zach is a Tableau desktop and server certified, and he loves speaking on Tableau server APIs and other data platforms. And he's been doing a lot of that lately. I follow him on Twitter. You can too, at Zach's Viz. And he's also a DataDev ambassador. And so I'm really excited. One of the things we were looking to do this year was get more information and people speaking about more technical aspects of Tableau. And this certainly fits into that category. So really excited to introduce Zach Geis. Zach, go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. All right, so let me go ahead and steal the screen share. I'm gonna share this screen over here. So kind of funny, before I get started, so Ashley was doing a presentation and was talking about JP Morgan Chase, which is, it's kind of funny. It's a big community, but there are a lot of relationships here that sometimes you don't see. So it's funny enough that if you go into the link that Ashley shared, you can go into Chase, and there's actually a presentation from a member of my team about how we've done things and worked with Tableau on some of these things that we mentioned here about the skill belt and the different blueprint things like that. So Heather's on my team really just focuses on training and curriculum and things like that. So just kind of interesting to throw that out there. If you read through there, you can actually get more of a sneak peek into other things that my team does within Tableau. So I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Go back to the top. So Christian kind of covered this page right here. So my name is Zach Geis. I've been working with Tableau for just about 10 years now. And, I like all different facets of Tableau usage. So, I focus in Tableau design. I do things with Tableau data dev. I do a lot of things with Tableau server. It's really just my role as a COE leader to pretty much know all the different things about Tableau. So as Christian kind of alluded to, the goal of myself and my team is to just make Tableau successful. So at JP Morgan Chase, we have over 100,000 users of Tableau today. All of those in some way, shape, or form relate back to my team. So we're either initializing and standing up the servers, or we're doing training and events, or we're packaging the Tableau desktop software, or in the case of today's session, we're building different automation points for use of users with the different Tableau APIs. And I'll kind of highlight some different ways you can do that as I go through the presentation. So one thing I usually show a slide just to show that, albeit a lot of times when you talk to people, you think that it's either going to be, somebody said they can barely hear me. Is that just me?
Zach, you're actually coming through fine for me. Okay. Is anybody else having issues?
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay,
as
yeah.
well.
All right. Just wanted to make sure before we get too far in. So, so a lot of times.
Sorry, you are in presentation mode though, just to give you a heads up.
Okay, so you should be able to see this presentation over here on the left side. Is that not what you're seeing?
I'm only seeing slide 1 so far.
Right. So if I slide through, so you see, right now you should see a screen full of some Tableau dashboards. Is that what you see?
Yeah, you're not on the presentation mode.
I might be sharing the wrong screen. Sorry about
that.
Yeah. 1 second. All right. Does that look better? You see a slide with different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of
All right.
Cool.
Sorry about that. So so just to go back, there's some stuff. So there's my email, Twitter handle. If you guys need to follow me, reach out anytime. So just showing this slide here. I like to focus on the fact that you don't really need to be one or the other. You don't need to be somebody that does analysis in Tableau and leave it to other people to do the data dev stuff. You can really thrive in both ways. And I'm going to show you as I go through here, there's opportunities to jump right in and start doing some of this stuff without really knowing anything about coding. And I think that's okay to know different areas of Tableau and how you can use it. So my whole presentation here is kind of centered around the Tableau developer program. So I've got the URL here, so tableau.com/developer. You take one thing away from the session, definitely make sure to go back to this site. So I'm actually going to just flip over to the browser, talk about this a little bit. So the Tableau developer program is kind of an area that centralizes everything about the data dev and API work of Tableau. So if you're interested to learn more about APIs, if you're interested to just connect with the community, or just start to see some of the different challenges and things that Tableau promotes for data dev, just go to the site and you can get everything that you need. You kind of go scroll through here. There's information about their community and where you can get, ask questions, things like that. There's information about GitHub, so if you want to get some of their source code, things like that, or just support and information about the different tools. The two most interesting things about this, in my eyes, are number one, you get automatically added to all their events and emails and things like that. So you want to see the newsletter, what's coming out in DataDev, what's coming out in the APIs, you'll get that. The other thing that I use all the time is it automatically gives you a sandbox site inside of Tableau Online. So if you ever want to test out some APIs, if you ever want to have just a place in Tableau server that's not your work area, you can go into here, sign up, and you'll get access to a place where you can just start playing with it. See the admin options inside of Tableau, start to play around with more things that you might not have access to inside of your firm. And it's definitely useful, and I'll actually show that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. I like to just spend a little bit of time calling out some of the highlights of the data dev program as far as the tool set and the different APIs and what you can do with those. So I won't go through all of these, but web data connectors, those allow you to actually extend what you can connect to include things on the web. So you know that you have an API endpoint that's available that you can consume data from, but you can't necessarily connect directly in Tableau. You can actually build some code to offer that data back to Tableau and then build kind of a pipeline around that. The hyper and extract APIs allow you to programmatically generate and update extract files for Tableau. So if you, for example, want to connect to 3 different sources, build a connection, put together the data, and maybe manipulate and add some columns without using Tableau prep or Alteryx or things like that, you can actually do that with an API directly inside of that API. The automation framework is definitely something that I like a lot. So the REST API, if you want to build a process that automatically creates a sandbox site when you click a button and add some users and gives people access, you can actually put together a script that will allow you to do something like that. If you need to, build a webhook, so something that generates an alert later down the road when something happens, say that a data refresh job is done and you want that to automatically generate a note in Slack to your users, you can actually build a pipeline to do something just like that. There's integration with R and Python if you like the data science side, and that's been expanded to include MATLAB and also additional analytics and extensions. So things that aren't maybe included inside of R or Python where you can actually build that yourself. And then embedding. Embedding is another core piece of the Tableau data dev area. So you can build a website around Tableau. You can have communication to and from your site within your embedded application. You can actually have a specific view or homepage for users based on what they should see and things like that. And then finally, there's the extensions API. So this allows you to actually build little applications inside of Tableau. Maybe you want to, when you click on something, right back to a database, or you want to add D3 objects to your dashboard. You can use these things inside of extensions. Now, the last thing before I move into an actual demo here is DataDev Bingo. So this is something that Tableau is doing right now as far as part of their data dev challenge. or program where you can actually learn some of the basics of embedding in the different APIs, and then move towards getting swag and things like that from it. So if you look at this, you can kind of see, so there's different challenges for each of these. So learn the basics of embedding. And if you go to the site, it actually shows you what are the things you got to do. And it's typically you're going to put together a simple embedded page inside of Tableau, and it's going to link you to directions and help documents on how to do that. And these get a little bit more advanced the more you go down, like tweet every time an extract is failing. So the goal here is to look through here and find the things that interest you or the ones that you want to learn, and then try and, of course, get bingo. And then you can send that into Tableau and highlight it on Twitter, show that you've done it, and you can actually get some swag from doing something like that. So I definitely encourage you to do this. This is something that I did last year. They did something similar to this, and I spent a lot of time going through the different challenges of last year and learned a lot. So if you want to start off, maybe you have some knowledge, maybe you don't, this is a good place to just get started and learn a little bit about the different APIs and what you can do to extend Tableau. Now, I try not to spend a lot of time in PowerPoint. That was most of my slides right there, and spend some time in an actual environment coding or building something. So what I've decided to do today with the time that we have is highlight an API that's, number one, very easy to use. Number two, most people have access to it. And number three, if you don't have access to it, you can get it with the DataDev program. So if you go into a server, and again, this is part of what I get for just being part of that program. And again, it's free, it's easy to, all you gotta do is sign up, and then you can log in here to your Tableau Online. So it's as simple as online.tableau.com. And it's just like if you were to have a server on-prem or anything like that. You sign in and then you get access to this, and you can see, looks like just like everything else. This is my own individual instance that I get for free as part of the DataDev program, where I can test APIs and I can try out these things. Everything about this is the same you would expect. It's the most recent version always. I can add groups and schedules and content and all that. You'll see that I've got a little bit on here that I usually use for presentations like this. But the big thing that I want to do is actually highlight the metadata API. So the metadata API is your gateway into getting information about what is on your server in a very lightweight and easily manageable way. So to access it, the front end is very easy. I'm just going to strip down this URL, and this would apply if you have your own Tableau server, and as long as you have the right access and it's turned on, you can do the same thing. And I'm just going to go to metadata/graphical. And you can see I've used this before. So it's really just stripping down your URL and then adding these 2 points. You hit enter, and it's going to take you into this little interface. So this interface allows you to just work directly with this API without going into anything else, without writing Python scripts or going somewhere else. You can just directly inside of the screen start playing with this API. And it's really well formatted and tailored to new users. So it gives you a nice little welcome message here. It talks with how you can construct a little query, some of the keyboard shortcuts. It's got little buttons here, like if you want to see the history of things that you've run, you can see those on the left side. You can go over here to the Document Explorer, which is definitely where I'd start if you were doing this for the first time. And you could do things like, I want to learn a little bit about what are the workbooks inside of my Tableau server. You can just search workbook, and you'll see it's going to come back up with all these things about what you can get about workbook. You can click into it, and it has a nice summary of what you can do, how you implement it, and what are the fields you can grab. So to actually construct this and just start querying about workbooks, simply just go down here, and I will start to generate a query. So I'm just going to call this query workbook. So it always starts with query. Then I'm going to give it a name, and then I'm going to use a left curly bracket. Then I'm just going to hit enter, and let's just say I want to get the name of my workbooks. Okay. Oops. So that should be, actually, I got to go down one more level. So workbooks. So this one was just the title. This is me actually saying I want to look at workbooks. And now I'm going to go for name. And we'll just add ID as well. So super simple. That's it. I just say query, give it a title, left bracket, what am I querying against, which is workbooks. And within that, give me the name and ID. That's all I'm doing here. And if I go up to this run button now, you see it run and it returns with a JSON element of what is my list of names and my list of IDs as well. So this is really useful if you want to go in a lot of directions. So I put a couple little examples here together that I can copy over. So if I want to ever get the fields from my Tableau server. So in the past, before this API came out, there was only one way to get fields, and that was get every single one of those workbook files, scrape through the actual code or the XML of those files, and then pull that information out. The metadata API takes all of that and pushes it right here to where I can get this without doing any of that work. So very similar to what I have up here. Give me a query of fields, that's what I'm calling it, and give me fields, the ID, the name, and the description. If I run this up here, you'll see I get an option now. I can run either workbooks or fields. I run fields, and now I've got my name, I've got my description, which you're usually not going to have a lot of descriptions in your fields, but I can now tie this into other things that I want to know. Maybe I want to find all of the instances of social security number inside of Tableau. Very simple for me to run this in here, pull it out. I can even filter by social security, or I can just pull them all out and then copy this data, throw it into Tableau, and then analyze it from there. Other things I can do, if I wanted to get the actual custom SQL within Tableau. I'm not going to have any here because it wouldn't make sense. This is all just local Excel files, but I can now run this custom SQL, and this would give me a list of all my data, actual extracts and my data source names, and then what is the query? Is it certified? And I could chain that back into what is the workbook name and who's the owner of it and things like that. Speaking of users and owners, we're just getting a little bit more advanced with some of these, but still very simple kind of elements to put together. Give me, sorry, that's not the right one. Give me a little bit more. This is nesting, but give me the users and the content that they own. So give me a list of users with their ID, their username, and the owned workbooks they own. And then within those owned workbooks, give me the name and the project name and the created at. Again, this is just like 5 lines. There's this very simple, very lightweight. And now if I go in here, users and content, now I get all of my users. I'm the only user on here, which makes sense. But now I can see what they own, when it was created. I could go into when it was last updated, you know, are people using it, things like that. And you can get more and more complicated with these. So if I wanted to, for example, just build an entire data catalog of all the fields inside of all the workbooks, that would take me so long outside of this API. I'd have to get all of those workbooks, put them all down. You know, in my case, that would be 10,000 workbooks. I'd have to get all those, download those, do all that. In here, it's as simple as this. Give me the workbooks, the name, the information about the owner, whether they're embedded, what are the fields inside of the embedded. And again, this is just like 20 words or so. And now I can go into workbook fields, give it a second, and now I have every single workbook, the person that owns them along with their information, what are the embedded data sources, and what are the fields that are used inside of those, along with the formula. Like I can see the actual formula of what they've built inside of that. So this gets, you know, you can go more and more deep. You can see the consequences of changing something, how that might impact something else. One of those challenges that I mentioned from last year was check to see if there's any calculations or fields inside of Tableau that are just called calculation 1, calculation 2 as an example, and then take that, send it through, generate an email, automatically send that to a user and say, hey, you need to clean up your calculation. So this is extremely powerful. But again, the reason I wanted to show this was you don't need to have any programming knowledge to start playing with this. You can simply start doing this and putting these little things together, start looking at the history here, and then start to get this information on your own without any extra work. So I'll flip back over to my slides. A couple things to wrap up that metadata API section. This is a reminder on that URL. So tablosserver.com/metadata/graphical. It's kind of a weird spelling, but that's what it looks like. And then I also called out one of my fellow DataDev ambassadors. So if you go over here to Anya's page, this has a lot of information that I even kind of covered here, but a little bit more if you want to go into more of how this works and how you can get into it. There's information about how the syntax works and some more examples. I pulled some of the queries that I ran directly from her page. It's a really great primer on how to use this. And I'll make sure I'll paste this into the chat once I wrap up. But definitely, you know, if you want to take a picture of the slide, screenshot, this is a good example slide for that metadata API. And then the last slide I've got here is a couple of useful links that I might have mentioned or just glossed over. So Tableau has a pretty extensive GitHub account. So if you want to get some of their example code, some of the things that they built out, some of the example queries for metadata API and other things like that. I mentioned the Tableau developer program and the tools there, so you can see some information about both of those right here. And then the mini challenges, the DataDev Bingo that I mentioned, you can start working on that here. And that's about it. So I wanted to leave some time for questions. If you have any questions about that particular API that I showed, the DataDev Ambassador Program or DataDev Program at large, anything like that, feel free to throw those questions out into the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, feel free to enter any questions you may have in the Q&A. We do have one from Brian asking about using Tableau Desktop on server, but not being server admins and still wanting to use the tools in some form or fashion. So any recommendations that you may have in terms of working with the Tableau server admins to get access to those tools to be able to leverage them?
Yeah, it's specifically for Tableau Desktop. I mean, you can always run Tableau Desktop on a server. It's gonna work just because of, you know, it's just a machine. As far as the APIs and things like that, it's more of a conversation with them. So there's certain things that you can get. You can get things like access to the Postgres repository, where you can get a lot of information about Tableau server without getting access to the server itself. You can get access to these APIs without getting server access, or sorry, machine access for the server, but you can still get access to the APIs as well. It just depends. Usually things are pretty cut and dry with the access on the server. The easiest thing and the least riskiest thing for a server admin is, as long as you're a site admin, you can pretty much do all the APIs. So what I showed as far as even that sandbox, I'm a site admin, I'm not a server admin there. As long as they can give you site admin where you're kind of pocketed into your one area, it lowers the risk and still gives you access to all the things you would need.
Cool. In terms of your team, Zach, like what are some of the most frequently used API or most productive, most valuable API resources that you guys leverage?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the API itself, the one that we use the most would be the REST API, because part of my role and part of what my team does is as a focus area is automation of things. So, you know, we try to automate deployments, we try to automate project onboarding and user onboarding. So, you know, we've spent a lot of time going through the materials, using examples. I'd say every one of the APIs, if you go through the links that I've shared, actually have links to how to. So there's a lot of how to information. There's step-by-step learning materials for each of those different APIs. So just spending some time there and then going out and getting some real practice is also good. So getting that sandbox site that I had mentioned gives you the ability to start playing around and testing those things as you learn them as well.
And just to be clear, anybody can do this, right? You don't need an invitation from Tableau. I mean, so you can register for the DataDev program. You can get that sandbox site. I've done that. I don't leverage it as much as I should, but you basically get a free instance of Tableau online that if you are so inclined, you can play around with, modify, test some things to accomplish, to learn.
Yep, 100%. So that page I said, tableau.com/developer, you just hit that join now, you give them an email, they'll set you up and you get all the bells and whistles that we mentioned.
Awesome. Cool. Any other questions? What's it like in Columbus?
It's not bad. I mean,
Good.
honestly, I try not to leave my house too much lately. It's been pretty cold, but we've got a puppy, a little husky, and she really enjoys all the snow. So, but yeah, it's definitely about a foot plus of snow out there right now.
Bummer. All right, one last opportunity for questions for Zach. We give you a minute or two to think about those. We are going to have a Kahoot quiz, and we're going to be giving away a free Tableau e-learning license to the winner. So, I mean, the stakes are raised a little bit. So you're going to want to be fast, be accurate, and it's going to be recapping some of the information that was conveyed during the TUG. So we're going to have a smattering of data dev questions, of data culture, playbook, and maybe even one or two on student Iron Viz. So yeah, stick around for these last 10 minutes, and we're actually ahead of schedule, so we're doing really well. But one more opportunity for questions for Zach, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I think there's one out there. So is the developer program the right place to participate, give feedback on early release products? So yeah, you can definitely go out there. You can get information on the pre-release. You can sign up for that kind of stuff. And that page, actually, when you go to the community, directs you to the group Slack, where all of the DataDev ambassadors are, as well as the community liaisons like Gigi and others that sit within Tableau. So there's definitely a good area of feedback. You'll see a lot of that flowing in, and definitely, I think, participate there, check out the community, and you can start just chatting with us all.
All right. Cool. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate the presentation. And we'll get this Kahoot party started. All right, so you should see a big blue slide that says Kahoot. There will be a URL, www.kahoot.it, for you to join, and the game pin is 37157334. So go ahead and type that in. And we'll wait for players here. We got, looks like one. Phil, KB, we got some people hopping in. All right. Again, we're going to be giving away a free Tableau e-learning license to the grand champion of today's Kahoot. So, Agent Skinner, Avril. Phil. Freezing. Not in Tucson. I don't know. It was kind of cold here for a little while. Not anymore.
Can you share that website so we can see who's in there?
Yes.
There you go.
All right. Shall we get started? 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Good luck to everyone.
A Kahoot by Tucson Tableau User Group. 3, 2, 1. 3 types of sponsors analytics efforts need to be successful. Time constraints are pretty tight for these questions, so you're gonna have to be quick.
You get more points if you answer quicker.
That's right. Speed is a factor.
Yes.
Yep. No legal sponsors, thankfully, for our data analytics efforts. True or false? An invitation is required to join the Tableau developer program.
That was mentioned.
That
right?
was.
Whew.
See, these questions are kind of softball questions, so speed is definitely going to be a factor. Britt takes the lead. And this was something Ashley talked about. How many key indicators should you be tracking? 5, 3, 10, 25. 10. All right, that was one of the things Ashley talked about during her presentation. 10 key indicators. That's the sweet spot.
Wow.
The smiley face.
It's on fire.
Good for you, yeah. Question number 4. Oh, we didn't even talk about this. I bet you there's a good portion of the people on this call who may know this though. Features for Tableau 2021 coming out soon.
Ooh.
Multi-select, so. Yeah, unfortunately, all of the above except for the global styling sheet. So you do still have to multiple times change styles for fonts, etc. Yeah, but some cool stuff nonetheless coming in 2021.
Oof. Change again, leader.
So instead of using data to measure outcomes, true or false, you should use data to track business processes. And this was going back to Ashley's presentation. True. Using data to track business processes is a best practice. Yeah. Lex still in the lead. We got some movement on the bottom half though. Okay, I do remember her definitely talking about this. What % of companies have successfully achieved analytics at scale? 25%, 8%, 13%, or just 3%? What do you think, Natalia? 8%. That was quick. The timing is way too tight for these, I think. We're not giving people enough time.
So 8%, wow.
8%, hence the need for the data culture playbook and things like Tableau Blueprint. All right, Lex, nice work.
Seven.
Multi-select once again. To be a data-driven organization, you need what? 2 things. The right technology, culture that values data, great coffee and drinks, a divisional org structure. Great coffee and drinks might help.
Yeah, like that's tricky, but no one selected it.
No, and the org structure really doesn't make that big a difference, especially compared to the right technology and culture. All right, couple more questions here. What API, Zach's presentation, can you use to embed and programmatically interact with your dashboards? Embed and programmatically interact.
Who was paying attention?
Who was paying attention? My son wants some gum. I don't know if anybody else heard that.
Yeah, we did. Oh, okay. I would have selected REST API.
You know what? This is definitely an error my fault, guys.
Oh,
So
really?
it should just
So
be the JavaScript.
Christian wasn't paying attention, was what they want to know.
Yeah, my fault. JavaScript API is the answer. Hopefully that doesn't determine the outcome of the winner here. What Tableau API can you use to send notifications to external apps? Hyper, REST, notification, webhooks API. This is one that I want to start digging into. Yes, webhooks API.
Wow, 3 people got it. Oh, wow.
And last one, I think this is on student IronViz. I think we did sneak a student IronViz question in there. So what 3 areas, multi-select, does an exceptional student IronViz excel in? And this is for the championship right here, coming down to the wire. Analytical depth, best practices, BD design, or complexity. Everything but complexity, basically. You want to be able to communicate your findings, your analysis, simple and as clearly as possible. So analytical depth, best practices, BD design. All right, I think part of it probably is the Kahoot quiz designer probably needs some practice, but I'll get better, I promise. We need Nicole. Nicole, I hope you're feeling well. Thank you all for participating in this. Let's see who the winner was. 3rd place, Britt. Freezing, 2nd place. 1st place, champion, Lex.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, well done, well done. Post your email, Lex, if you're comfortable, in the chat to the panelists, and we'll make sure we get you that free Tableau e-learning license. Cool. Anything else, Natalia, that you want to mention before we close the webinar?
Well, you remember how we talk about in the future doing presentations on the industries that our community are part of? Maybe we can have like a quick poll on the industry that you work on, so then we can try to get speakers on those industries.
Yeah, can we do that? Can we do that in the Q&A or in the chat? Just do a quick poll, or did you want to do it? Send it out to the.
I have no idea how to do a poll,
Okay.
but maybe if you just type in your industry, we'll just count the answers.
Yeah, so Natalia, what Natalia's talking about is doing a focus session in the future just on specific industry use cases in regards to Tableau and analytics. So we're trying to get a sense of what industry people are in so that we can design that session to sort of meet that need.
Okay.
Cool, we got some coming in, healthcare, government, yeah.
Well, Nicole doesn't count, but okay.
Nicole, you count.
Okay.
All right, she didn't mean that. Not like that.
Well, I'm a higher ed then. I'll count as well.
Okay, so Lex was Alexis. Well, congratulations, Alexis. I'll make sure you get the free e-learning license sent to you. Financial credit union. Cool. So definitely a few higher ed there. So that may be a good place to start for a future session. Biomedical. All right. Thank you, everybody. This was fun. A good hour and a half break from the day. Looking forward to doing this next month. Thank you again to Zach, to Ashley, and to Parth, who had to go to class. But thank you anyway, Parth. And good to chat with all you guys, and we'll see you again in the future.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.